Hi everyone, and in relation to the B-roll you just saw, and hopefully with many of you, I like coffee, especially my latte, which happens to be my daily brew. So in today's video, I just wanted to go through my process of my daily brew, the tools I use, the equipment I use, the products I use, and more importantly, if you're someone who likes coffee, why you may want to consider brewing at home instead of buying outside. By the way, if you don't know, my name is Leonard. I am a chef and also a dietitian. I am making videos on food, cooking, nutrition, and that sort. If you like content like that, do consider sticking around, and if you enjoyed today's video, please consider liking and even subscribing. Also, just a quick disclaimer, this video is not sponsored by any products or any brands. The opinions given here are purely mine. So I drink coffee every day, and just like many of you may do as well, if you buy coffee outside, the cost can really add up. And in my experience, it's very much cheaper if you buy your own espresso machine and do it yourself at home. Now, in terms of lattes, the cheapest I've seen in the market here in Malaysia is at 9 ringgit. So let's calculate very quickly how much it would cost to make a latte at home. Now, so let's break it down very quickly. Your main cost to make a latte at home would simply be your coffee beans, your milk, and perhaps a little bit of utilities. So generally, if you buy coffee beans from your local roaster, 250 grams of beans would cost approximately 60 ringgit. And if I brew every cup with 18 grams of coffee beans, that approximately means about 14 cups for every 250 grams of beans, and subsequently about 4 ringgit 30 cents for every single cup of latte. Milk wise, generally most would use whole cow's milk. That would cost around 10 ringgit for every liter of cow's milk. Assuming you use 150 milliliters for every single latte that you make at home, that would amount to about $1.50 for every single latte from the milk alone. So if you take the coffee beans and the milk and add them up, you are coming at a cost of around 5 ringgit 80 cents. Let's just round it up with utilities to around 6 ringgit, which means the minimum difference that you would get from buying outside versus making your own latte at home is a differential of 3 ringgit. Now, I use the BREWING Barista Express for my daily brew at home, and that machine costs about 3,250 ringgit, and what that means is that with the differential of 3 ringgit, instead of buying outside and brewing at home, after 2.9 years I believe, you get the machine for free. And in my experience, it certainly has been and is still working perfectly fine. Now, of course, there are much cheaper setup to make your own coffee at home, even for espresso machines. But my point is that if you brew at home and if you love coffee, it is definitely going to be much cheaper if you brew at home. So in terms of brewing coffee, in this case a latte, there are basically 3 major products you need to consider. And those 3 products are basically your beans, your espresso machine, and your milk. Now, for my beans, I rotate among different suppliers, different roasters here and there, but for the sake of keeping it consistent, one bean supplier that I like to work with or like to buy from is Perk Coffee. Now, Perk Coffee is an online roastery that allows you to choose what kind of beans do you want, from which origin, which flavor profile, and it allows you to customize when you want them roasted and delivered to your stipulated address. Now, if you're not into beans, they also have it pre-grounded, they also have drips, pods, and the sorts. I've been using them a couple of times now, and I find them pretty good. Again, they are not sponsoring anything of this video, but if you like to try them out, I do highly recommend it. I'll leave the link in the below, and you will get 25 ringgit off your first order, and so will I for my next order. So once you have your coffee bean in mind, it's time to make your espresso. Now, every type of coffee is made with a brew ratio in mind, and what a brew ratio basically means is that how much espresso or extraction you get for every single gram of coffee bean. So for example, if you extract 2 milliliters or 2 grams of coffee for 1 gram of bean, that's a brew ratio of 1 to 2. Now, the difference between a normal pour over coffee or brew coffee compared to an espresso is that the brew ratio is often very much different. And in the case of my personal ratio for espresso, just to make things a bit more cost efficient and also to suit my flavor profile, I brew what we call a lungo or a double shot at a brew ratio of 1 to 4 at 18 grams for every espresso, which means I put 18 grams of coffee beans into the grinder, I make an espresso out of that and get about 72 milliliters of an espresso shot. To make the espresso itself, you'll need an espresso machine, and like I've mentioned before, I use the BREWING Barista Express. The BREWING Barista Express is a semi-automatic machine, which means I get all the perks of manually adjusting my perks and nuances by being able to program them into a typical automatic setup. On top of that, it also has a built-in grinder, which means you're allowed to grind your beans when you want to make your espresso, which in my humble opinion is the best way to make coffee, as well as a pressure gauge which helps you to adjust and tweak around with the settings until you get your desired setting. I won't go into the details of how to prime your coffee machine of choice, but if you do want to check that out, let me know in the comments and I'll make a video about it in the future. But safe to say, if you have an espresso machine, just one extra equipment you will need is a weighing scale to weigh your coffee beans and to prime your machine to make sure that your brew ratios are correct, and those are the most important factors. The last aspect of the latte would be the milk of choice. Now in my case, I personally have gone for soy milk over cow's milk, and specifically I choose this particular brand. Again, they're not sponsored, but it's Vsoy's low sugar soy milk. This soy milk has been specifically formulated for baristas in mind, and I have two main reasons why I love it. Number one, if you're familiar with the barista and coffee industry, you know for a fact that when it comes to soy milk for lattes, the brand to go is Pacific. And don't get me wrong, it's a great brand, they have amazing soy milk. However, it retails at 19 ringgit for every liter of soy milk. Vsoy's low sugar soy milk, however, only costs 5 ringgit 50 cents for a liter of soy milk. And in my humble opinion, the flavor is very similar. Number two, if you're like me and you recently had a sudden surge of cholesterol because you weren't careful with your diet or lifestyle, one good way to reduce cholesterol is to lower down consistent sources of saturated fats in your diet. And for me, that was my cow's milk in my lattes. So that's another reason why I opted for soy milk instead. You could of course opt for low-fat milk or skim milk for baristas, but number one, they do cost a bit more money. In my opinion, the taste just is too thin. The body is just too thin, and the soy milk has the benefits of no saturated fats but the same nice thick body that a typical whole cow's milk would have, with a little bit of a nuttier flavor, which in my humble opinion is quite nice actually. So that's my daily coffee brew setup, and if you want to know any of those products, I'll leave links in the description below. Like I've mentioned, if you want to try out Perk Coffee for example, there will be a referral link. You get 25 ringgit off your first purchase and I get 25 ringgit off my next purchase, to be completely transparent. Now if you enjoyed this video, please do leave a like and even a comment, and even consider subscribing for more content like this. It is very encouraging when I see that number goes boop 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 boop. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Ciao.